Grow, Sell, and Retire is the podcast for the lazy overachiever. B.D. Dalton, author of True Gravity and Grow, Sell, and Retire, is here to give you his 25 years of secrets, tips, and systems to take your business to the next level. This is your chance to find out what is working in sales, marketing, and running your business. If you stop learning, you stop earning. Now, here's your host, BD, with today's GSR podcast.
Hey everybody, BD Dalton here, Grow, Sell, and Retire podcast. And guess what? We're going to talk about the future today. Everybody talks about the future all the time, but I have Tom Cheesewright here with me. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So a futurist, what is the difference between a futurist and like a tarot card reader or somebody that's a mind reader with cards on their head? How did you get into it, and how does somebody become a futurist?
I think their job's easier in some ways. The difference? Every company, every individual, we all look at the future. Whether it's ironing a shirt for the day ahead, whether it's thinking about what you're going to eat for dinner that night, whether it's taking out insurance or planning a holiday for next year, we all look at the future. But the reality is that most companies are pretty bad at doing it. They don't do it often enough. They don't have good tools for looking at the future. And the tools that they do use are generally not fit for purpose. I've done some work with all sorts of companies. I'll give you a good example. I spoke to companies, they tell me that their annual budget, 2/3 of companies tell me that their annual budget and their annual strategy do not match up. That there is no alignment between the two, or the best sort of top level alignment, which means that, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Sorry, my wife's just creeping in to say goodbye.
It's okay. It doesn't matter. It's all good. But you see that in all sorts of businesses when you're looking at it. A lot of people just spitball stuff, don't they? And it's just not.
Yeah, and
there's no way they don't use the right tools to track it down.
Yeah, even on the outside, when it looks like a robust process, what you find under the hood is that people are there wrangling spreadsheets for months on end to get to an answer that no one's really happy with. And when I say to business leaders, I say you should be spending 1% of your time thinking about the future, which is about one solid day every 6 months. And most of them tell me they're not even doing that. They're so bound up in the day-to-day, just getting to the next quarter, just trying to make business as usual work and fighting fires, that they have very little opportunity to think beyond that, to actually think, what's coming next, what's at the next intersection, what's going to take this business out of the knees if I don't change something.
Yeah, and that's really when I get back to it, I talk about taking a holiday every month. Is literally taking a week out of your month. If you could get all your work done in 3 weeks, how great would that be? And then work on your business for the rest of it, and not or on yourself for the rest of it. But people don't even take that time, and most of the time, and when you're going in, I don't know if you get the same thing, but they say, "Well, we'll come back to you when we're ready." We'll come back to you and talk about the future when we're ready to talk about the future.
Yeah, but I guess that's kind of why I'm busy, because we're starting to see a change in that.
Good.
I get phone calls from companies who are generally one of two things. They're either scared or they're excited. I get phone calls that are driven out of fear, saying something just happened. We didn't see it coming. How do we make sure that doesn't happen again?
And what would something like that be? What would...
we just lost our biggest customer because they told us they're going to a competitor we've never even heard of. We've just noticed that a bunch of our customers are doing something we've always done for them themselves. We didn't even know that was a possibility. We've just realized that one of our plants in Brazil is being undercut by a local manufacturer, and we didn't think anybody else had the capital to build a plant. And it turns out the capital cost of building that soap powder plant, whatever it may be, is now 1/10 of what they thought it was 5 years ago. These massive transformational shocks in business that have come around from advances in technology, acceleration of globalization, are catching a lot of people unawares, and that's where this fear comes from.
So do you think, and I guess here's a difficult question, but you're the futurist, is it harder or easier to do business nowadays?
I think it's easier to start and harder to sustain, if that's not a cop-out answer.
No, it's a great answer, and I think it's the barriers to entry are much lower. But
yeah, absolutely. You've got the technology.
For everybody.
Yeah, you got the technology thing. I do an exercise with clients sometimes. You got 400 people in a room. I get them into groups and I say, start a business, right? Get your phones out now and touch these 10 touch points that you need to reach in order to get a business off the ground. Go and register it with the regulator. Go and set up your website. Go and find, a marketing platform. Go and source a supplier. Go into all these things, go and or set up a bank account. I set up my first business nearly 15 years ago. It took me 6 weeks to get a bank account. Now I can do it in 2 hours. And I can do it sat on myself with a glass of wine in my hand. These things are much easier than they were before, but they're easier for everybody, which means more competition, more challenge, more change.
So when you look at this, and so we got the competition could come in quicker and faster and things like that, and people are coming in that aren't even in your industry currently, then they become in your industry within days, weeks, months.
Absolutely.
And it's really difficult. So when you're starting to have somebody start to future think or future proof their business, and let's just use a services industry, it doesn't matter if it's legal or financial or whatever else it is. What are some things that somebody should be, besides taking a day out, what do they do during that day? So if you had a day that you were going to tell me, BD, go work on your business for a day, here's some things you need to think about, what would those be?
So I say start with, what are the pressure points in your business today? What are the things that are causing you problems that maybe you don't even know about? Go and talk to your staff. Go and talk to your customers. Go and talk to your partners. You can do it with an email survey. Just stick out a SurveyMonkey survey. You can do it with, some focus groups and conversations. You can do it just by picking up the phone or calling some people into the office for a chat. But get them to be frank, get them to be honest, get them to be open and tell you what the problems are. And you'll find a load of stuff you knew about and loads of stuff you didn't know about. Now map those against the big macro trends. Go and pick up a newspaper, go and pick up my book, whatever it is, go and pick up, go and read Wired, go and look at what's happening to the world, go and look at these trends for, this phenomenon of high frequency change, go and look at this accelerated competition, go and look at the power of AI and augmented people and automation. Now map those big trends against those pressure points you've just found, and you will find where those two intersect, what the biggest changes coming to your sector are. So if you've got massive skills problems, but actually those skills are entirely replicable by a machine, you'll find that actually somebody in your industry is going to be moving towards automation really quickly. If you've got a big legacy of infrastructure and the whole platform of the whole infrastructure platform for your industry is moving, you've got a really serious issue. And then you start to map the macro trends against your pressure points. You very quickly start to see where the biggest change is going to come.
So high frequency change, your book. So are there some tools that you've designed or something like that if somebody's a complete novice in this and doesn't know if they would like to engage a Tom Cheesewright, is there something there that they can sift through that's not just a SWOT analysis?
Yeah, I mean, so there is a description of a very basic description of that tool set in there. I haven't actually announced this yet, but I'm actually writing another book at the moment, which will be out next year, which is the complete toolkit in book form, which takes you through, first of all, how you do foresight, and particularly this sort of near-term 5-year foresight, looking for those big sort of near-term swings. There's a tool that talks, which is about how you make decisions faster, how you accelerate decision making, some very clear and practical tips for that. And then there's also going to be a set of tools about how you structure business. And this is one of the other things I find myself getting into a lot, is that actually a lot of our businesses have been structured for continuous process optimization. They've been structured for improving business as usual rather than thinking about changing business fundamentals. And so there's some guidelines in there about how you restructure the business and make it more agile as well.
And so the smaller the business, hopefully the more agile it can be and the quicker it can change.
Possibly. That's not always true. I think if a small business has been around a long time, you still have a lot of embedded behaviors and legacy bureaucracy. And you also have quite a lot of intransigence from people who've been there a long time. Weirdly, actually, I find the hardest businesses to change are happy businesses. If I go into a business and I find that all the staff have been there 14 years, they're all singing from the same hymn sheet, they're all raving about what a great place it is to work, you know that probably nobody's putting in disruptive ideas and challenging the status quo very often. Those are the big risk factors. So yes, small companies can change quickly in theory, but they frequently don't, because the force of personality in particularly long-lived small businesses is quite powerful.
They say the easiest way to cook a frog is to put it in a vat of water and turn it up one degree at a time. It's a happy frog for quite a while until you eat the volume. But yeah, happiness is that complacency. Sometimes complacency kills. And
I'm not saying people shouldn't be happy at work, but if you look around your workplace and you see the same faces day in, day out, particularly if it's not a very diverse workplace, if nobody's going off to work elsewhere and coming back, nobody's coming in from other industries, you probably have a serious dearth of ideas.
And it's crazy. It's really good. So when you're seeing industries that are changing in business right now, when you're talking to people, and you're talking about AI or any sort of future trends, in kind of middle-sized businesses, what are the main ones that you've had come up over the last 6 months, or how's the variation?
In terms of which types of businesses, or actually applications of AI?
Applications inside those businesses. I think the things that are pointing, because I've seen that you've talked about recruiting and recruiting the right people, and the future of recruiting staffing is always an issue, I think.
Yeah, right now, most of the applications are really right down at the base fundamentals. Let's be clear. We haven't extracted most companies haven't extracted the full value from Microsoft Office yet, right? We still don't use some really basic tools to their maximum capability in terms of offloading the drudgery of day-to-day work to very simple systems. And so most of the investment I'm seeing at the moment is not particularly clever applications. It's just doing stuff that might otherwise be put in front of a human by a machine. Really simple robotic process automation, connecting disparate databases and systems together, automatically processing large volumes of paperwork, whether that is customer inquiries, whether that is mortgage applications, whether that is contracts. But perhaps some of the more interesting stuff I'm seeing is starting to overcome the limitations of human beings. So a good example over at Accenture's research park in Dublin a while back, saw a system that scans sort of event reports in the pharmaceutical industry and sort of sits alongside the human operator to help them fill them in consistently without mistakes. So spotting all those places, automatically generating some text that might be the right answer, ensuring they don't miss anything, ensuring that all sort of the regulatory components are fulfilled. That sort of human augmentation, I think, is probably the next step. And that really amps up productivity. I can't remember the exact numbers they gave me, but it used to be, something like one person doing one every 2 weeks, and now it's one person doing one every 2 days. It's dramatic increases in productivity.
And the funny thing is, every time we have anything like this, industrial revolution wise, now automated revolution wise, it doesn't. There's still as many humans on Earth, and people are earning more money than ever before. So the robots aren't going to get rid of us. They're just going to hopefully make our lives easier and better and allow us to focus on other things.
Yeah, we hope. It's really hard to see with this revolution that how some of the unemployment doesn't go from being sort of short term to being structural. And I'll give you some particular examples. The call center industry. In the UK, we employ 1 million people in call centers. And we already have the technology that could probably replace 80% of those. Not with some hideous, dial 9 and bang your head against a wall IVR system, but a proper emotionally aware conversational system that delivers responses in natural language, bespoke responses in natural language. We're kind of at that point already. You can't get rid of all the humans, but you can get rid of a fairly large portion of them. And it's hard to know, what a bunch of call center operatives in disparate parts of the UK, what jobs they're going to jump into. Likewise, the logistics industry, it's hard to see where they're going to go. But you raise a really important misnomer about the nature of automation. Robots don't take jobs. Robots take work. And most jobs are a combination of a few different pieces of work. So, even your delivery driver is not just driving a car from A to B. They are, checking packages, shifting them from the boot to the front door. They're doing a customer service role. They're doing lots of these different things. And so, a robot will never directly replace that job. It can replace components of that work. And in an ideal world, that leaves the humans to focus on the stuff where the humans add more value.
And that's hopefully more value add is what we do in the higher paying jobs anyways. And it'll be interesting to see where those lower paying jobs go. And because there'll always be something created. But
yeah, and you've got to remember that a lot of the low paying jobs are really hard to automate. Cleaning is really hard to automate.
Yeah, a Roomba doesn't do everything that it needs to do in every
exactly
time. So there still has to be a human touch in those scenarios. And then have you seen in a robot tax or something like that if these jobs are being eaten up because of AI and robots and everything else, the governments are now going to have some pressure put on them. Have you seen talk of a robot tax or
Yeah, it's a complete non-starter. I mean, the idea of a robot tax just doesn't work at all. And I'll tell you why. Go and talk to Microsoft or IBM or Oracle and say, how accurate do you think your billing is based on the number of copies of your software that's out there? And I don't know what the exact number, they'll probably tell you it's really high. In reality, it might be like 50%. They often have no idea how many copies of their software are running out there and sort of mapping, constantly chasing up licenses for individual database servers and other things is a huge job for them. Now, imagine trying to do that as a state for every software robot that serves somebody in your country. When people think of robots, they think of R2-D2 and C-3PO. Actually, most of these robots are going to be ephemeral bits of software that spin up for a few milliseconds on a server in Iceland or wherever energy is cheap and then disappear again having fulfilled their function. You cannot tax that. It is impossible. What you have to do is reform corporation tax and tax at an appropriate level. And if, as we hope, automation drives increased productivity and therefore increased profit, we just need to be better at taxing corporations at the levels we already have, probably just collecting it better. The downside of that is, ensuring that situation happens is an international challenge. And right now we seem to be building walls rather than breaking down barriers to international cooperation.
Yeah. And it seems a lot like that. Now, what about the kind of the future of work? So you've got more people working from home. Also, the barrier being broken down when it comes to your phone. So the phones are there now, and the phones can be 24/7. And I had a chat with Minter Dial, who's written Future Proof, and we talk about if your company autonomous vehicle shows up at your house and picks you up, when does work begin? So. What does work look like in kind of what you're envisaging in the future?
So I think we have to completely let go of the idea of the 9-to-5 job for most people. I mean, let's be honest, few of us work 9 to 5 anyway already. I think it's much more likely going to be jobs, plural. Some of those are going to be your own sort of side hustles. And some of them are going to be more forms of formal employment, but probably part-time. Some of them might be sort of maybe even state incentivized forms of social work. And I mean by that, supporting your local community or helping members of your aging population around you. I think we're going to see a much more fragmented and diverse idea of what it means to work, and very much a combination of things that add value in terms of putting money in your bank account and forms of social value in the longer term. In the short term, absolutely this sort of atomization of the workplace where people spread around and atomization of the working day. And the really big challenge is right now we've got the technology, we've got the possibility to work remotely and do these things remotely. But most companies still measure people, at least from a middle management to junior level, on presenteeism. We measure effort rather than output. And we've got to, absolutely have to shift ourselves from a measurement of effort to a measurement of output and outcomes. Otherwise, we're going to drive everybody mad because we're going to be expecting everybody to be on all the time, rather than actually looking what they've delivered.
Yeah, there's no longer a need to punch on the clock unless you're turning out widgets, literally physical widgets, and you're counting widgets piece by piece.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
And then how does that then interact with our lives? Because we're talking about, like you were referring there. So if I leave my 9 to 5, what that used to be, and then I go and I care for the elderly in my local community, and you get in your kind of envisaged point, do you get points for your community service and money for your work, your 9 to 5, or what?
Yeah, maybe. There's lots of talk about universal basic income. Some measure of community contribution could be some part of that. But I'm generally, universal basic income is neither, should neither be, it shouldn't be universal, and it shouldn't be a basic income either, because we just can't afford to make it that. I think what we can afford to do is a sort of income top up, almost like those other tax credits we have in the UK, which may be tied to some form of social commitment. But that seems fairly distant right now. What I think we might see actually is a lot more purely social incentives towards that sort of behaviour. I'm a huge skeptic of the sort of this idea that different generations, whether they're millennials or Gen Z or whatever, display fundamentally different characteristics. But one thing I think is an inarguable trend is this move away from ownership of stuff towards experiences. And it's a combination of affordability. Lots of people can't afford to buy a house now, so they're renting. But I think there is also a really cultural component to it where people are valuing things differently. They're starting to value their experiences more. And you see this in, alcohol consumption. People are drinking less, but spending more on each drink. So you see it with food consumption. People are much more engaged with what they're eating, whether it's the quality or the health value or just pure flavor and the eating experience. And I think that's sort of trickling down to community engagement as well. You're starting to see almost a bit of a renaissance of people being much more conscious about where they live, who they share that space with. And then some of it's coming about in the way people are living. So, a lot of these buy-to-rent buildings now are designed with placemaking and sort of semi-closed communities inside them. But part of it's just about a shift away from the what has been quite a destructive, purely acquisitional, commercial culture for a few years, and towards a recognition that actually a sustainable life doesn't necessarily involve dying with the most toys.
So I run a thing called the Bull Ring, which is kind of our version of the Dragon's Den and Shark Tank and things like that. If I was to say, Tom, here's 3 1 million pound investments, where are you putting your money right now, even if it's 2? What type of companies are you backing right now?
One would be energy. I think there's so much innovation still to be done in energy. Around, for example, a good example is the next chemistry shift in batteries from lithium ion to probably some form of metal air battery. I think there are some really interesting companies starting to spring up in that who could do energy storage at the same density as petrol, which is could have a dramatic impact on our energy grid, on our potentially vehicles, or it may not be the best sort of dimensions for vehicles, but there's this huge innovation going on there. One would be in materials. There is a whole range of innovation coming in materials science now that sort of kicked off with the discovery of graphene a few years ago. Early commercialization was very basic. It was taking big lumps of powder and dumping it into carbon fiber or other materials to make them lighter and stiffer. But the next wave of innovation on that touches on everything from electronics to displays to running shoes to absolutely everything. So I think materials science, interesting companies in materials science are really fascinating. And if I was going to put the £3 million in somewhere, I'd probably be looking at something in property, actually. We still have a need to live in places and work in places, even if the nature of those things is changing. There is a huge amount of, we have continuing population growth. We have environmental challenges for those properties, and properties are always aging as well. I think, there's still interesting investments to be made in property, even post the decline of WeWork.
Yeah, the technology company that was a property play.
Yeah, very cleverly structured. I love the fact that they rented properties off another company owned by their CEO. That was very smart on his part.
Yes, no, he did very well. It's questionable when you're going to go to market, but we're not here to talk about the ethics of WeWork. But okay, so what are you listening to right now? What's in your what we'd say iPhone, iPad, Samsung, whatever else it is?
I'm just about to start the Missing Crypto Queen, which is a podcast about the disappearance of a cryptocurrency sort of maven by, and I'm going to forget his name now. Anyway, it's a BBC podcast. Jamie Bartlett, there we go, who's very interesting. I listen to a lot of the podcasts from the RSA, the Royal Society of the Arts in the UK. You get a huge range of fascinating speakers across an enormous variety of subjects. So that's always kind of top of my list.
And how about technology that's making your life either more fun or easier?
So I'm a massive nerd. I have a degree in mechatronic engineering to start with, and I've actually gone back to engineering the last few years. So there is constantly small packages from Chinese component manufacturers plopping through my front door. So right now I'm rebuilding my home automation system with a bunch of homemade kit, all based around the open source project Home Assistant. Which if you're into home automation and playing with Alexa and stuff like that, go and download yourself Home Assistant, because this is an absolute joy to play with.
How do you spell that?
HOME, home, and then assistant. AWSISTANT.
Home Assistant. Cool. That's on the list now. Okay. And then, so how do people track you down?
TomCheesewright.com. Very easy. And if I'm not there, you can find me at Book of the Future on just about every social network.
Book of the Future. And then how about the best person you've ever interviewed with or met with, or the most interesting person to you? Didn't have to be the most interesting person to everybody else, but that you've interviewed with or for?
Wow. I got to have a good chat with Brian Cox, the physicist, a few years ago when I booked him to come and speak at a conference. But most recently, I interviewed Brian Aranha, who's one of this leadership team at ArcelorMittal, the biggest steel company in the world. Mm-hmm. That's a series of podcasts that will be coming out next year, and that was an absolutely fascinating conversation. I think we all have this picture of steel as a sort of old world industry that's sort of dirty and will probably be, we'll have to leave it behind if we're going to build a sustainable world. And actually, you talk to the scientists and the executives in that industry, and you start to look at the figures, and you realize actually it's probably the other way around. The world is going to be made of steel for some time to come.
That's cool. Okay. And then if somebody's just tuning into the last minute, this is your top tips, epitaph, what do you want to call it? You're listening to a couple of seconds. What's the one thing that you would tell a business person, business owner to think about or to do if they just took this one thing away and applied it today?
Spend 1% of your time thinking about the future. One day every 6 months, get out of the office, grab some diverse opinions, look at what's happening in the world, and map it against how the pressures you're already facing in your business. And that's where change is going to come from.
That's awesome. Tom Cheesewright, thanks so much for coming on the Grow, Sell, and Retire podcast.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on Grow, Sell, and Retire. For more information, tools, or to book one of our team members to work with your team, business, or to speak at your event or conference, visit bartdaltonconsulting.com or email contact@bartdaltonconsulting.com. Buy the book True Gravity on Amazon. If you want to work for the rest of your life, that is your business. If you don't, that is ours.